Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Coffee Shop Chatter with Mr. Controversy. So today I'm just gonna be going over a little bit of this whole deliberation with the jury and the instructions they were given by this judge. A lot of people already know it's a witch hunt. I mean, it's a bunch of made up charges. If you look at a lot of this stuff, it's stuff that your normal everyday person wouldn't even get charged with. You know, this whole Stormy Daniels assigning checks. Trump was actually president when these checks were so-called signed. So if he was trying to hide something, I personally believe those checks would have been signed way before he was in office. And I could tell you, as him being the president, he's signing a whole bunch of stuff. He probably didn't know what the hell he was signing. They probably just come, hey, we need to sign this, and he just signed it. Especially if your lawyer brings something in there, you want to sign it. A lot in those positions, it's just when you have a lot of things or you're in the authority of signing a lot of things. I know I've kind of said I would be guilty a few times, and it's just because positions I've held where my signature was needed for certain things, and if the person explained to me what it was, or they was like, "Hey, sir, we need you to sign this," I'm like, "Okay." I just read the title or something, then it's kind of something I already know what it is, or I just like sign there. I'm like, "Hey, just make sure I get a copy of that so I can read through the whole thing." It People who say you should, yeah, I even agree you shouldn't do it, but there's times I can't say I've been guilty on the military side of doing that. Now, civilian, yeah, I'm reading everything. I'm not meticulous when it comes to it. Military wise, no, I didn't look at it that way because I'm like, if you sign something that's gonna get me in trouble, you going down with me. Plain and simple. That's it. You're going with me. I would Nino Brown your ass in a minute. I'm going down. We all going down. But we're gonna go ahead and jump into this video.
Jurors are now deliberating the fate of former President Trump. A verdict could come at any time. We'll be monitoring any and all news coming out of that courtroom all hour. Now, while much legal analysis has been focused on the prosecution, the defense, and Donald Trump as criminal defendant, Judge Merchan has also been under scrutiny. Let's bring in former federal prosecutor, former South Carolina congressman, and host of Sunday Night in America, Trey Gowdy. Trey, tell us your thoughts on the fallibility of the judge and why, as Elise Stefanik has said, he is responsible for potential misconduct behind this.
Well, look, I was a prosecutor, so I kind of lean pro-prosecution. I never had a judge that was actually part of the prosecution team. I mean, he undercut the defense by excluding the expert. Even the tone with which he sustained certain objections and overruled other objections. I mean, yesterday, it was clear to me that the defense just kind of gave up, because if you object and it's overruled, then the jury thinks that you're wrong, that you're trying to hide something from them, because they identify with the judge. It just seemed to me yesterday there was a certain resignation among the defense attorneys that we're just not going to object anymore, which means the prosecution got away with even more. I mean, they were literally arguing the fact that Michael Cohen pled guilty really is wink, wink evidence that President Trump is guilty. That is stuff that never would have happened if the judge were actually calling balls and strikes with the same strike zone.
And as Andy McCarthy has said, it's literally an orchestration, in part, of a potential conviction here, Trey. So talk to us, however, much has been made, especially in the mainstream media, about the judge maintaining not only an impartiality, but essentially a protection by the court of the jury from hearing this. He has told us time and again the court has done everything to protect this types of evidence. I have instructed the jury to, for example, disregard certain things, granted favored heavily, for example, disregarding defense's comments rather than prosecution's, Trey. But at the end of the day, will that be successful?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I mean, juries relate to judges. It doesn't matter how much I don't like his rulings and how I think that some of his evidentiary rulings have been off base. I don't want to say it's the Stockholm Syndrome, but it's tantamount to that. Juries look to judges. That's who feeds them. That's who says we can start late. That's who tells them what you can and can't do when you're on break. I mean, they have a relationship with the judge. So when they see the judge yelling at defense witnesses but being super nice to Michael Cohen. I mean, he was much tougher to Bob Costello than he was to Michael Cohen. And then you get to the instruction, which is solely the province of the judge. I mean, I have to disagree with people who say the jury can pick among a menu or a buffet of 3 crimes. There can be any crime. The jury doesn't even have to specify. It could be a daggum crime in North Dakota. If it was done in furtherance of another crime, the jury does not have to specify what that crime is. I mean, that is a gift to the prosecution.
So against that backdrop, Trey, and under the umbrella of the clear stance this judge has taken throughout the trial, talk to us about the absolute catastrophe that these jury instructions have presented, that vagueness, that lack of specificity. Talk to us about what that means in real terms, that essentially can the jury just select and, well, I guess this one fits, and sure, 4 of us agree, so that's guilty. Is that a wrap? Is that an actual outcome that we might have to be subjected to, the former president be subjected to today or tomorrow?
Yeah. Well, I was sitting there this morning with the real legal experts. I'm just kind of a washed-up lawyer, but the real legal experts trying to figure out, when does something become a crime? I mean, to me, it's a crime when you're convicted by a jury or you plead guilty. So if it has to be done in furtherance of a crime, at what point is that word triggered? I mean, does it have to be beyond a reasonable doubt? What are the elements of this alleged additional crime that must be proven? It was so void as to be, I think, unconstitutionally vague. But by the time we figure that out, we'll be well after the election and the political damage will have been done.
And hopefully any criminal damage, Trey, will be undone. But we hope we don't even have to get there today in this circus of a trial. You, my friend, are an expert legal analysis, and we are grateful for that today. All right, bringing this back to the couch.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, sir. Kaylee, so Trey talks about the political implications of this and the judge's conduct, and especially the background. We know that Elise Stefanik has pointed this out. Jim Jordan has written letters. Where do you see this going, and is it too late?
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of the constitutional grounds we talk about, I mean, that would be something reserved for an appeal. We hope that one of the jurors has watched this. And as you know, and I say it over and over again, because it's elementary, you learn it in the first day of law school, do the facts match the law? And there has to be, I believe, at least one juror who says, the facts don't seem to match the law. Not everything's adding up here. And we'll see if that moment happens. To the conduct of the judge, Trey wrote this morning. He said, the judge says he does not have an opinion on the case or the defendant's guilt. And I have heard more emotion in hostage videos than the judge has when reciting those rote words. Jonathan Turley, another great attorney who has a way with words, said, you know, when you look at what the judge did yesterday with the defense motions and the prosecution's motions, we know Justice Roberts in his confirmation hearing says judges call balls and strikes. Well, Jonathan Turley said this: for the prosecutors making objections, the strike zone seemed like it stretched from dugout to dugout. For the defense, it seemed the size of a postage stamp. We're not in the room. That's their opinion.
And to her point, Kilmeade, inflections are not reflected in the record. You know, at the end of the day, on appeal, it's all black and white there. So, oh, yes, I did admonish them correctly, admonish meaning the jury. Well, at the end of the day, there might have been a whole color of swaying going on that only those who were there were subjected to.
Right. We don't know these people. We don't know what operates them. We don't know why they got on the jury. We know this. The judge has been nothing but biased from day one. The only thing I could say in terms of what he read off at the end and that's been relayed to us, the verdict cannot rest on speculation. This whole thing is speculation. What did Donald Trump, what did he not know? And they also talk about setting aside your opinions on Trump, just stick to the facts. The facts have him signing these checks in the Oval Office after he was done, as he signs everything on a daily basis. He's basically being convicted for following his attorney's advice.
Tammy.
Well, I think that this is what we've seen here. I think the American people have been appalled. The issue becomes what the jury does. But what's interesting is we have to remember, judges are lawyers in a robe. They're just regular people. And so the structure is meant and expects decent people who really are committed to following the nature of the structure itself, that it's not a game. So I think what's happened here, while it's been very difficult for the Trump family and the country, has been invaluable, because we've seen how far it can go when people have abandoned the nature of what it is they're supposed to be doing.
But via a sacrificial lamb, that's a former president. There are catastrophic consequences here.
There are. And what the words that you just spoke, Tammy, really touched me. Because you're right. We're watching something that isn't supposed to be broken like this.
That's right.
Yeah, it affects all of us. Emily, if you'll allow me, I'm just going to give some notes on Judge Merchan. Paul Morrow, who was formerly in his office, in the prosecutor's office here in New York before he became a cop, was making calls while we were on the air last hour. And he reached out to the chief administrator and found out that Merchan oversaw the special grand jury. And Paul wants to know, how did he get that job with the conflicts of interest that they already knew? That his wife had worked in the office with Letitia James, the AG, that his wife had worked in that same office with Michael Colangelo, who was the senior counsel that Alvin Bragg just appointed and who gave the opening statements to this case. How did he get that job without maybe checking off some conflicts of interest? He was also, Michelangelo, as you'll remember, the acting associate attorney general in Biden's DOJ. I mean, there are, as Paul pointed out, a lot of web moments. This is like Spider-Man goes crazy and ties everything together. And it really is interesting when you look at the politics. So if things are as broken as Tammy Bruce just laid them out, and we as a nation watch it, the question is the jurors. Will they see it? Well, they weren't sequestered, and they had 7 days off, so they have phones. It would be unfortunate if the system were broken enough that they'd tap in that way. But we don't know.
Right. And the state OCA spokesman said this is done often because of familiarity with the complex cases.
Right.
To your point, however, perhaps here it merely reflects a bias.
So I like to know what everybody think about that. You know, it's the way they laid out from the judge to the current DA, and it's a lot of corrupted stuff going on in New York. It's the same thing with a lot of other states, but when you're just focusing on a previous president, and a lot of it is being done to keep him off the campaign trail, it's obvious that's what they're trying to do, because Biden would not last through a debate. And I agree with Trump. I'm like, drug test him. Give him a drug test, because if you watched him lately, he has zero energy. It's like he don't know where he's at. That's just where I'm at on it. But the issue I have with this judge, one of the things is what he told the jurors was they don't need to agree on unlawful means to convict Trump. So he's basically saying, hey, you don't have to unanimously agree to convict him on different charges. But we all know normally when they convict people, or if it's a hung jury means we couldn't agree. But he's saying, hey, you don't all have to agree, but I still want you to come back with a guilty. That's what he's indirectly saying. You don't have to agree, but I just want you to come back with a guilty verdict. And then everything goes to his hands. And that's what I say, this country, I don't know what's going on with a lot of stuff, but it does bring me to one thing. And it has to deal with New York. So everyone has probably seen Batman before, or Batman Returns, one of those. And there's one scene that comes to mind. So I'm gonna go ahead and play that, and then we're gonna get out of here.
We take Gotham from the corrupt, the rich, the oppressors of generations who have kept you down with myths of opportunity, and we give it back to you, the people. Gotham is yours. None shall interfere. Do as you please. But start by storming Blackgate and freeing the oppressed! Step forward those who would serve. For an army will be raised. The powerful will be ripped from their decadent nests and cast out into the cold world that we know and endure. Courts will be convened. Spoils will be enjoyed. Blood will be shed. The police will survive as they learn to serve true justice. This great city, it will endure. Gotham will survive.